Hello guys, welcome back to Bioshots. Today I am here with a very new video regarding the biological classification. For this I am using the +1 NCERT textbook. In this video I am completely doing the +1 NCERT line by line, so you guys can understand every point exactly and perfectly. So this chapter is really very important, not only for the board exams of +1 but also for any other competitive examinations. So let's get started. Since the dawn of civilization, there have been many attempts to classify living organisms. As you all know, in the earlier days there is no such classifications. All are organisms. There is no any classification regarding whether it's plants, animals, or no other classifications were exist regarding biological organisms. So it was done instinctively, not using criteria that there was scientific, but born out of a need to use organisms for our own use, for food, shelter and clothing. Aristotle was the earliest to attempt a more scientific basis for classification. So the first person who tried to classify organisms were Aristotle. Just remember that. Aristotle was the earliest to attempt a more scientific basis for classification. So he used simple morphological characters to classify plants into trees, shrubs and herbs. Aristotle done classifications regarding plants. Alright. He also divided animals into two groups, like a red blood and those that did not. Okay, so what he have done is that he classified plants into trees, shrubs and herbs, and animals into red-blooded and which didn't have any red-blooded. Alright, so this is a very broad form of classification. Next, the person who have classified was Linnaeus. Linnaeus were the next or important form of classification is regarding Linnaeus. What he have done? In Linnaeus' time, a two-kingdom classification, very important. The main two-kingdom classification was initiated by Linnaeus. He classified the organisms into Plantae and Animalia. Alright, was developed that include all plants and animals respectively. So this is the very perfect first form of classification of organisms. Alright, this system did not distinguish between the eukaryotes and prokaryotes. This is a very much more brief or broad form of classification. This set of classifications is not included by Linnaeus during his time. And also the unicellular and multicellular organisms, that photosynthetic or non-photosynthetic. This set of concentrated form of classifications was absent in Linnaeus. What he have done is a very broad form of classification, like two-kingdom classification, Plantae and Animalia. Alright, the classification of organisms into plants and animals was easily done and was easy to understand, of course, but a large number of organisms did not fall into either category. This is the major drawback of Linnaeus classification. Most of the organisms are not included in this set of classification. Example, like bacteria or paramecium, is it animal or a plant, is very big question that made bias to most of the scientists during that period. Alright, hence two-kingdom classification used for a very long time was inadequate for the classification of organisms. Alright, besides, gross morphology was needed, was also felt for including other characteristics like cell structure, then nature of form, mode of nutrition, habitat, methods of reproduction, evolutionary relationship, etc. So what they have done is that later they began to concentrate on the major special characteristics of organisms like cell structure, in what form the cell made up of, and what form the wall of the cell made up of, and how they are feeding, how their mode of nutrition will be, and in what habitat they are existing, and in what form they are reproducing, and also how they are evolved. Based on that, the scientists began to classify organisms. So classification system for the living organisms have hence undergone several changes over the time. Though plant and animal kingdom have been constant under all different systems. The understanding of what organs or what groups organisms be included under these kingdoms have been changing. The number and the nature of other kingdoms have also been understood differently by different scientists. Just a general feature. Then, in 1969, R.H. Whittaker was the next person who classified organisms into 5 kingdoms. This is really very important. This 5 kingdom classification is the first step of specific level of classification. So in this 5 kingdom, there are Monera, the first one, Protista, the second one, Fungi, the third one, Plantae, the fourth one, and the fifth one is Animalia. Here, the organism is not at all classified into Plantae or Animalia, but into 5 in nature. That is Monera, then Protist, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. This is really very important. So, let's discuss about the 5 kingdoms in detailed form. This is really very important because you should by heart this table. If you by heart this, you will get the complete characteristic features of these 5 kingdoms. First, let's discuss about Monera. So, about Monera, we already told that the major characters used for the classifications are cell type, cell wall, nuclear membrane, body organization, and the fifth one is mode of nutrition. The first one is cell type. About Monera, what is the cell type? It is prokaryote. Cell types can be classified into 2 types, that is prokaryotes. The second one is eukaryotes. So what is prokaryotes? Prokaryotes are the organisms which didn't have any true nucleus, that is false nucleus is present for these prokaryotes. Alright, then what is eukaryotes? Eukaryotes which having true nucleus. Alright, this is a major criteria for classification of organisms into prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes have false nuclei and eukaryotes have the true nucleus. Alright, so for about Monera have a very false nucleus, so hence they are prokaryotes. In the 5 kingdom classification, Monera is the only set of organism which didn't have any true nucleus, so they were the only prokaryotes in the 5 kingdom classification. It's really important, remember that. The next feature is cell wall. About cell wall, the cell wall of Monera is non-cellulosic, that is, it doesn't have any structural feature or structural content called cellulose, but it is made up of polysaccharides and amino acids. Remember that it is not made up of cellulose but with polysaccharides and amino acids. Okay, about nuclear membrane. For them, nuclear membrane is absent for them. Alright, next body organization. They have cellular form of organization, that is single cell is present for these organisms. Next is mode of nutrition. Nutrition, they have autotrophic mode of nutrition. What is autotroph? Auto, what is called auto? Auto means self. They self-prepare their food. That is in the form of chemosynthetic or photosynthetic. Alright, the mode of nutrition is autotrophic. Like chemosynthetic means they produce food by chemical reaction within them. What is photosynthetic? Photosynthetic means they prepared food by the form of photosynthesis. Alright, this is the first set of mode of nutrition. The second set of mode of nutrition is heterotrophic. What is heterotrophic? Heterotrophic, they didn't prepare food for themselves, but they depend on other organisms for their food, like saprophytic or parasitic. So, in saprophytes, they began to feed on the dead organisms. They are called saprophytes. In parasites, they began to feed on the other living organisms for their existence. Alright, this is about Monera. In Monera, the main features, they are prokaryote, they are non-cellulosic, and the nuclear membrane is absent, body organization is cellular, and the mode of nutrition is autotrophic and heterotrophic. Alright, this is regarding Monera. The next individual is Protista. About Protista, Protista have eukaryotic cell type. Alright, they have true nucleus is present for this Protista. And cell wall is present in some. In some form of protist, cell wall is present. In other form, it is absent. But generally speaking, presence of cell wall is an important feature. The next feature is nuclear membrane. Nuclear membrane is present for this set of organism, and their body organization is cellular in form. Alright, the mode of nutrition is autotrophic. They prepare food by themselves, and also heterotrophic. They also can depend on other organisms for their nutrition. Alright, in autotrophic, they are not capable of chemosynthetic, but they are capable of photosynthetic form of nutrition. Alright, this is regarding Protista. Then third set of classification is fungi. About fungi, the cell type is eukaryotic form, and the cell wall is made up of chitin. Really very important. This is the organism which having chitin as their cell wall. Alright, they have nuclear membrane is present. They are not at all any cellular form. They are multicellular. They are made up of more than one cell. That is multicellular, or loose tissues are present for them. They are not unicellular. Alright, their mode of nutrition is heterotrophic. That is, they began to depend on the other organisms for form of nutrition. They can be saprophytic and parasite. Alright, then the other set of classification, as you all know, is Plantae and Animalia. What Plantae? They are eukaryotic, of course, yes, and their cell wall is present, and they are made up of cellulose. This is really important. The organisms in which cell wall is made up of cellulose is plant. Alright, and the nuclear membrane is present for them, and they have a tissue or organ system level of organization. They are not at all cell or multicellular. They have tissue, lot of multicells combined to form a single tissue. Alright, they are multicellular, that is in the form of a tissue, or organ system is present. Organ is present for them. Alright, their mode of nutrition is autotrophic. They began to prepare food by themselves in the form of photosynthetic. Alright, the next and the last category is Animalia. In the case of Animalia, they have eukaryotic form of cell, and their cell wall is absent. It's really very important. In the 5 kingdom classification, the all organisms in which the cell wall absent is Animalia. In the competitive exam, it's commonly asked, that is, the organisms in which the cell wall is absent is Animalia. Alright, in the case of Animalia, the nuclear membrane is also present. They have a tissue level or organ level or organ system. The very broad form of cellular organization is the organ system, and this set of organ system is present for this Animalia. And their mode of nutrition is, of course, heterotrophic. They cannot prepare food for themselves. What they used is, in the form of nutrition, they began to depend on other organisms like holozoic or saprophyte. Holozoic completely use the food that is prepared by other organisms, and saprophytic, they depend on the dead organisms. And this is regarding the 5 kingdom classification that is put forward by Linnaeus. Alright, you should completely remember this table. If you remember this, you can go through the complete characteristic features of this 5 kingdom. Alright.